Choosing a weapon in Siege can be a daunting task. Every gun has their own recoil patterns, attachments, and damage outputs that can be overwhelming for new players to understand. So in today's video, I shot every LMG in the shooting range, and I'll be using the data I collected to rank them all from worst to best. Where will your favorite LMG show up? Well, make sure you watch the video all the way through because some of the placements will surprise you. Before I go into the placements, I must first explain my testing methodology. When testing guns recoil, I will exclusively use suppressor and the 1.5 to provide a more accurate representation of the gun's recoil. Outside of that, testing will mainly come down to the four most important stats of an LMG, like damage per shot, fire rate, capacity, and recoil. With this LMG episode specifically, stats are going to matter a lot less than normal. This is mainly due to a lot of LMGs having similar damage outputs, and additionally, a lot of them have uncontrollable recoil. So recoil is going to be one of the most important stats in this video. Anyways, I think you guys get the gist of how the testing is going to work, and I think that's enough rambling. So let's go ahead and get into the video. Now, starting out the video with the worst LMG in Rainbow Six Siege, we have the LMG-E. Now, if you were just to look at this gun on paper, you may not see why this thing is so low. The gun has solid damage, a decent fire rate, and a stupid high capacity. But as soon as you try to put it into action, you'll realize why it's so low. And that is mainly due to its high recoil. This LMG has some of the worst recoil I think I've seen in all of my gun tier list so far. The horizontal recoil is unbearable, and trust me, it doesn't get much better with a compensator. The only reason you might be upset about this placement is if you're overcame with nostalgia from the LMG meta, where this thing was completely overpowered. However, that just isn't the case anymore. It doesn't matter how good a gun's stats are, if you can't actually hit your shots, it won't matter. So this piece of shit definitely deserves to be right here in the worst spot. Moving on to the LMG in the 7th spot, we have the DP27. I'm sure you guys aren't surprised by this LMG being so low. Some of you might have wanted it to be at the bottom. And the reason for this is its stats are just awful in every regard. It deals 49 damage, it has a super slow fire rate of 550, it has a below average mag size of 70, and the only thing it has going for it is its low recoil and its destructive capability. Speaking of which, this gun has a stupid high destructive capability, and this is not normal for an LMG at all. It can easily make rotates and head holes for your team, which allows it to act as a makeshift shotgun on Tachanka since he has a bearing 9 secondary. But since its damage output is terrible, I don't think it's worth running unless you desperately need some additional destructive capability. I'll be honest, Ubisoft either needs to give this gun a magnification sight or they need to buff its damage output, because if they don't, it's going to continue to be one of the worst guns in the game, which is pretty sad considering how strong this thing used to be when it was on a bipod. Next up in the number 6 spot, we have the 6P41. This LMG is very similar to the LMG-E in the sense that it used to be very overpowered during the LMG meta, but some recoil nerfs absolutely wrecked the gun's viability, as you can see by this recoil chart in front of you. However, the recoil nerfs didn't affect it as much as the LMG-E. You can actually get away with controlling this gun if you just fire it in controlled burst. Additionally, the 6P41 stats are much better than the LMG-E, with it having a higher damage of 46, a similar fire rate of 680, but a much lower mag size of 100. To be honest, if you just fire this thing in small bursts, like I said earlier, you can definitely get away with running this thing. However, if you try to dump its magazine, it will punish you. And since the main draw of LMGs is their large magazine size, I can't put the 6P41 high since you can't exactly take advantage of that magazine. Now for my 5th spot, we have the T95. This is when we finally get into LMGs that are actually viable in game. The reason for this is due to it being one of the few LMGs that actually has controllable recoil. However, the reason for the T95 not being higher is because of its pretty low stats. It only deals 46 damage, its fire rate is a measly 650, and its capacity is an average 80 bullets per mag. Realistically, the reason why people don't complain about this gun's awful statistics is because it's only available on Ying. And since her gadget leaves her opponents blind, her gun really doesn't have to be that amazing. But if her gun was added to a different operator, its flaws would quickly be exposed and people wouldn't run it as much. Next up in the 4th spot, we have the M249 Saw. This is actually a very similar LMG to the T95. It has a higher damage of 48, the same fire rate of 650, and a lower mag size of 60. The only reason I put this one higher was due to its easy to control recoil and slightly better stats. But realistically, there isn't a huge difference between these two guns. They are both easy to control and their damage outputs only have a 2-point difference. So if you find yourself feeling that they are the same gun, they pretty much are. But you won't see people running this Saw much since it's on gridlock and she has a much better primary option in the form of the F90 assault rifle. Moving to the third place position, we have the G8A1. This is an exceptional LMG compared to its competition. It may sacrifice damage since it only deals 37 per shot, but it makes up for that in sheer fire rate, with it at the time of recording having a stupid high fire rate of 850, which is the second highest in the LMG category. Now you may think, well, the G8 must have high recoil since it has such a high fire rate. Well, that actually isn't the case here. It actually has the easiest to control recoil out of all the LMGs in this video. So what is the downside then? Well, the G8 has one major flaw. That being its low mag size of 50 bullets, which since it has a high fire rate, you'll find yourself reloading pretty often. But this really doesn't matter much at the end of the day since its stats are so great. This is definitely one of my personal favorites, but I felt the next two LMGs deserved the spot more. Now in the second place, we have the M249. Now you may be wondering, well, didn't you put its SAW counterpart in fourth place? And you'd be right. However, this is a far superior LMG because it comes equipped with a massive magazine size of 100 rounds. And unlike other LMGs on this list, the M249 can actually take advantage of this because it doesn't have ridiculous recoil. You can dump the entire 100 rounds downrange and you won't run into any issues on the recoil side of things, especially if you run a flash hiding. And since this LMG shares the same decent stats that the SAW has, you won't be losing gunfights just because of your stats. It can actually compete with some of the assault rifles in the game right now. The only reason you don't see it ran much is because Capitao isn't really picked much in ranked, and when he is, most people pick the Para 308 assault rifle over the M249 because of the Para having such a high damage with extended barrel. But I'll still be throwing the M249 in the second spot because it definitely deserved it. If it was available on other operators in the game, it would definitely be a fan favorite for sure. Now for the finale, the best LMG in Siege, we have the Alda 556. This is not only one of the best LMGs in the game, but it's also in the conversation for the best gun in the game, hands down. And that is why Ubisoft has never given it to any other operator other than Maestro. The Alda absolutely shreds with its fire rate of 900, the highest out of any LMG, and higher than most assault rifles. It has a damage of 35 and it has a mag size of 8. Now its damage may be low, but that doesn't really matter when you have a fire rate almost as high as some machine pistols. And since the recoil of this gun is basically non-existent, you can easily get away with pre-firing the hell out of any attackers that attempt to swing you. Also, its large mag size allows it to be one of the best guns in the game for 1vx situations. And the reason for this is because you can get away with taking multiple engagements without having to reload. I am genuinely in love with this weapon. It is one of my favorite guns to use in the game simply for that fact that it can be such a good 1vx situation weapon. It may be a little slow in the movement and ADS department, but it makes up for that in sheer statistics, and that's why I think it belongs in the #1 spot. Anyways, that wraps up today's video. As always, these videos are strictly my opinion, and if you disagree, feel free to leave your opinions in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. Also, if you want to see more of me, go follow me on Twitch because I'll be going live roughly 2 hours after this video goes up, and hopefully I'll see you there. Also, if you want to watch another video just like this one, a video will be popping up on your screen right now where I rank all of the shotguns from worst to best in Rainbow Six Siege. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.